So the last part cut me out because my video capacity is not too high on the phone. So here's part 2. So we're up in the agroforestry system. We've just gone up through the market garden and we're up to our second row of fruit trees. So now we've started into the apple orchard. So you can see some apple varieties behind me. And then again, we've got the same pattern. You see just down there next to those hemp mulch mats, which are just stopping the weeds, with some biodegradable hemp. You can see we've got gooseberry bushes intercropped between the apple trees. So it's the same pattern again. It's fruit trees, berry bushes, and then an understory of wildflowers and potentially more perennials like raspberries, strawberries in the future. But for now we're just doing the wildflower mixes. And then we have another block of crops. So in this one here, this is the root section of the crop rotation. So there'll be a lot of carrots and turnips, things like that in here, beetroots. And then we come to the next row of fruit trees. So here we've got more apples. This is Adam's pearmain, one of my favourite. And as an understory to that, we've actually got raspberries this time. So you can just see on the floor between the fruit trees, we've got raspberries. And then again, we've got the wildflower pollinator strip. And then another alleyway. So you can just see here, this is a 15-metre wide alley. And we're just walking up through. And we're just about to walk over a very significant site. So this is our potential old long barrow. So it came up on an archaeological survey. So we couldn't plant any trees on it or do anything like that, but it means we've got a potential sacred site on the land. I mean, it's all sacred here, but this little mound in the earth doesn't come up very well in the video, but there's a sort of a key kind of bowl shape coming up out of the ground, and so we're going to make something nice of that spot. We're not going to cultivate or plant anything. We're just going to use it for, sort of honour its roots, and it's probably once quite a sacred site. We've got spring water coming through the top of the land, so there's potentially some old settlements and activity here. And then we've got up to the top of the land, as you can tell from my panting, so it's actually quite a gentle slope. But, here's the pear trees behind me. So our top row of fruit trees is pears. So again, we've got a really long row of these. You can just see behind me going all the way down parallel to the hedgerow, and that's at the top side of the farm. So that's kind of at the western side. And this is our kind of final agroforestry row. And again, we've got berries interspersed, and we'll have understories of other things. And in this block, we'll be growing a lot of squash. So again, we'll be moving our tarps from where they've served their good purpose down there, and we'll be reusing them up here to grow a few more tons of squash up here. And again, we'll be able to, the tarps allow us just to do, to sort of keep the weeds down, and then in preparation for crops in future years without having too much soil disturbance and minimising that as much as possible. So we're just walking down the alleyway here. You can see just the hedgerow and the existing trees behind me. Actually, really, I should show you this side because it's really beautiful. This spot on the site, this is a picnic spot where we have our lunches. And got beautiful views over Bath. So the communities we're serving and growing for, always there as a reminder. And it's it's a really special spot right on the edge. We're kind of between that beautiful city and valley and river, and then kind of up here we've got Kelston Roundhill and more like hilly land behind us, and then it goes out into the Cotswolds. So it's a really beautiful little niche kind of between a social ecosystem and a more of a natural ecosystem and wild ecosystem, and maybe we can bridge the two and be both growing food for community, but also serving the nature here and regenerating it. That's the idea. So the model and the pattern we've just gone through is it's like a restoration agriculture model. So it's kind of looking at how we can go from a more of a sort of monoculture space or a field, or even it could be degraded land. This wasn't particularly degraded, it was actually very good soil, good condition when we got here. It's 12% organic matter, but it's a model for how we can actually also improve degraded land. So using different systems, using cover cropping, using green manures. So a few of our alley blocks are already put down to Phacelia and clover and things like that, and integrating perennial crops. And that's how we can kind of get the health and diversity back, and having much more diversity of species is the idea as well. So we're not just having one crop with one method and just having soil erosion and things like that. We're actually covering the soil, and we're having a whole diversity of species. So just walking along the edge, you can see the deer fence there and the hedgerow just behind me. So we've got lots of hazel at the top here, also some walnut and things that we might be able to coppice and have, byproducts of nuts and things like that, but it'll also be host to a lot of biodiversity, and again just all part of the holistic farm system. We're just getting to the top right corner of the kind of agroforestry system, so you can barely even see the market garden really. It's over the hill there. So again, there's lots of very different spaces on the land, and looking forward to sort of showing you them physically to get more of an idea about it. And we're just now crossing the threshold to the lower field. So you might see from the map that we've got this upper field, which is much more, it's production and agroforestry orientated, so that's where we're growing the bulk of the food. And then there's this lower field that includes the wetland and the wildflower meadow, and that's on this lower section here. And you can just see the hedgerow right in the distance there, and that's kind of the end of Broadmoor Lane, and that's the footpath that goes up to Kelston Roundhill for those that know the area. So this is our kind of lower field. It's got very different, a lot of different information we got from our surveys here, like with the water and different grass species. It's not been so cultivated. It's quite a much more unique ecosystem really. So here the aim down the bottom field is really to kind of restore this wetland, because it's got a lot of natural spring water flowing through it. So we're going to try and restore that wetland, slow that water flow down a little bit, hopefully prevent some flooding downstream and on the lane with some water storage plans, and also with tree planting and wildflowers and diversifying grass species. We hope to kind of revive the ecology a bit, and also maintain, of course, what's there already. And part of that tree planting is having a bit of a coppice down here. So you can see the trees behind me here. So we've got hazel coppice. So we've got a few rows of hazel behind me here, you can just see. So it's on a slightly more shady part of the land. That's west where I'm facing just there. And in a slightly more shady part, it's not as ideal for crop growing and things like that, but actually it's where species like certain tree species and perennials will thrive. So that's why we've gone for a coppice down here. And then as we get lower down the field, then we just reach this kind of more wetland and boggy area. So we've gone for different tree plantings down here. So we had a hazel near the top, and then down here we've got more willow species. So behind me you see a few rows of willow. Again, they're very young, tiny trees at the moment. So watch this space and can't wait to see them grow up more. We're already seeing all the buds coming out, which is really exciting. So some of our willow varieties here. So yeah, it's great, that whole process of planting over winter through January, and then we've been then just watching them grow, basically watching them bud and thrive and blossom, and can't wait to see over the next few years how they're going to grow up even more. So now I'm right at the bottom of the field, walking and talking. Some sound effects. It's quite boggy, quite squidgy down here. Different sorts of grasses. So we're right down the bottom here. There's a couple of springs coming behind me with those oak trees. And this is the kind of northwest side of the land. Right here, quite a bit of bird song in the background because we've got more mature trees here from the existing hedgerow. So it's much more of a kind of a natural, quieter, secluded spot down here, and quite uneven terrain as well. So just walking along this lower field here. So a lot of this lower field block, there aren't really plans for cultivation or growing. This is more the wild spaces. So from this permaculture design perspective, it's kind of like the zone 4, zone 5. We might have some beehives and things like that, and some coppice, but mostly it's kind of, we're leaving wild spaces, leaving spaces for nature, and then we're aiming for a big overlap between that system and the top field, which is kind of the agroforestry, where we're producing crops but in an ecological way as possible. So we're hoping to, over time, kind of make a big blurry boundary and a big overlap between those two sites, have more forest gardens, more perennial growing, more cover cropping, more mulching, and all these techniques we can use. So that's kind of exciting. Longer term vision is to really blur those two lines and kind of have natural farming that's also restoration and regenerative agriculture. So from up here you can probably see that's this kind of lower wetlandy area, so hopefully kind of restoring some of the brook there as well. One of our neighbours said he used to play in the brook down there, and yeah, I'm hoping to sort of bring some of that back. And that's also where this, on the map and on the plans, you might have also seen the wildflower area, so that's where that's going largely on this lower field. So we're working with Avon Wildlife Trust and getting advice from various others, so we're still kind of making the most appropriate plans and designs for that, whilst we're kind of cracking on with the growing, and that'll be a kind of a simmering plan for probably over winter and next spring. So we're not doing it all at once because we want to get it right, and you know, it's been a year designing and planning and everything like that, so we want all of the implementation to go just right. And we've certainly got all the trees in right, it seems. They all seem to be, haven't seen any dead trees, they all seem to be budding nicely, seem really healthy. We've put wood chip around them all, tree guards, mulch mats. The hemp mulch mats are good, and then these are the berry bushes just budding and coming alive. And we'll just walk down now to our kind of second orchard. So we've gone clockwise through the land, we've gone up through the apple and pear orchard with all the berries and the alley crops, and now we're just walking back towards the container, the background there, and we're walking back through the plum orchard. So this is kind of the second orchard, and it's got a similar design in a way, because we've got, let's see if I can get a good angle on it. So we've got, you might just see there's 2 rows of trees, well there's actually 4 or 5, but 2 rows, and between them there's a 8-metre gap, and that will also eventually have crops in, probably perennials like rhubarb and herbs, because it's a slightly more shady spot, and the alley row is a slightly lower width, so we probably won't be growing like vegetable crops in there, but it'll be more like perennials, herbs, rhubarb, soft fruits, things like that. So that's why we've left an intentional space there between the orchard rows. And what we've got here, so we've got green gage here, one of my favourites, and then just along front we've got the damson, a row of damsons, and then a row of plums, a load of different plum varieties. So yeah, whole plum, damson, green gage orchard is all planted, and we've got these spaces in between that will be for future growing as well. And then there's the third and final kind of orchard, which is just on that edge between the upper field and the lower field. So we're just walking down to the kind of bottom right southeasterly corner of the land, and I'll just show you the nut orchard from afar. So this is the top of it. So we've got specific hazel cob nut varieties, Webb's cob and some other ones. Yeah, the buds and the leaves are lovely, just coming through. So we've got loads of hazel trees behind me, also quite a lot of walnuts as well. We're hoping to source some good chestnut in the future as well. We couldn't get any stock this year, but we've got walnut and hazel so far. So kind of, again, we've got a similar system. There's gaps between the trees for potential perennial crops, shrubs, food forests, things like that to emerge. But for now we've got the nuttery rows. So the nut production is obviously a long game. It will kick in maybe when we retire, but it's kind of food security for a long time. And once nut trees are mature, they produce, you know, abundant harvests of crops. And we're in quite an open field here, so there's not too many squirrels around. So we'll see. We'll get into the nut production further down the line in a few decades, and yeah, really excited for that. And yeah, so we've got nut trees in that. We're going to walk back round up through the final bit of tree planting, and there's obviously hedgerow all around, so we've got loads of different hedgerow species. Sea buckthorn was one of the interesting ones, which grows a nice little orange, quite tart but flavoursome berries. So we're actually going to be growing them for some restaurants and also for veg boxes. So it's kind of the hedgerow also becomes part of the whole farm system, but it's also great. It's just a great hedgerow species for other things as well, quite quick growing, good habitats, that sort of thing. And so we're just walking up now. We're on this kind of eastern boundary of the land, so we get the sunrises over there behind me, and this is our kind of, what do we call this one, the kind of more random orchard, but it extends up from the plum trees. So we've got more plums up here, different varieties. So we've got some early prolific plums here, and then we've got more rows of some kind of, I don't know if you can see them down here, some nice little quince shrubs just coming into blossom. So quite a different mixture of trees in here in this final orchard. And more, the quince is lovely because the leaf comes out nice and early. That's the quince trees. And this is kind of, a lot of these trees are kind of nested just behind the solar barn and just east of the market garden. So they kind of provide a nice little edge there. There's also some nice mature willow trees and things like that, just for kind of sound and visual barriers. And some cherries for kind of blossom near the entrance to the farm, and some fruit crops hopefully too. So there we are. Now we're back to our shipping container, and that's where we stand in March with the farm project. So it's been a non-stop few months. Great to get the first crops in, and yeah, we look forward to showing a more proper physical tour when by May time we'll have lots of crops in, and it'll be a great time to come and see the farm then as well. So look forward to hosting you there, and look forward to growing food for you if you're around this area. And yeah, get in touch with any questions. Thanks so much.